The Fog of Black Hollow Resort Prologue, A Perfect Day. The Black Hollow Ski Resort was renowned for its pristine slopes and breathtaking mountain views. Nestled deep in the Rockies, it had become a hotspot for winter sports enthusiasts from around the country. On this particular weekend, 4 teenagers, Emma, Jake, Lily, and Ethan, were gearing up for the annual downhill skiing competition. The group had been training for months, pushing their limits to perfect their techniques. The morning had been perfect clear skies, powdery snow, and the thrill of the upcoming race. Black Hollow might just be the best place in the world, Jake said as he adjusted his goggles. Enjoy it while it lasts, Emma replied with a grin. Tomorrow, we're taking home those trophies. But none of them could have anticipated how quickly their excitement would turn into terror. Chapter 1: Darkness Falls. The competition was scheduled for the following day, so the group decided to spend the evening taking a relaxing ride on the resort's gondola. The lift provided a spectacular view of the snow-covered mountains, bathed in the orange hues of sunset. Midway through the ride, the gondola jolted to a stop. "What's going on?" Lily asked, glancing at Ethan, who sat across from her. "Probably just a technical glitch," Ethan said. "These things happen all the time." But then the lights flickered and went out completely, plunging them into darkness. A strange, oppressive silence descended over the mountains. Emma reached for her phone, only to find that it had no signal. "This can't be good," she muttered. Moments later, an unnatural fog began to roll in, blanketing the mountains in a dense, swirling mist. The air grew heavy, and a faint, acrid smell filled the gondola. "Do you smell that?" Jake asked, coughing. "It's awful," Lily said, covering her nose. They watched in horror as the fog consumed the slopes below. The world outside the gondola disappeared, replaced by an eerie, impenetrable whiteness. Chapter 2: Poison in the Air. The gondola remained motionless for what felt like hours. The group's initial annoyance turned to panic as they noticed strange symptoms beginning to appear. Ethan coughed violently, clutching his throat. "What the hell is this fog?" Lily's skin began to itch, and when she pulled back her sleeve, she gasped. Angry red welts had appeared on her arm. "We need to get out of here," Emma said, her voice shaking. Jake peered through the gondola's window, his breath fogging up the glass. "We're too high up to jump safely," he said. "Do you have a better idea?" Emma snapped. Realizing they had no other option, the group forced open the gondola door and prepared to leap into the unknown. Chapter 3: The Descent. The jump from the gondola was harrowing, but the deep snow cushioned their fall. They landed near a dense line of trees, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. "This fog," Lily said, coughing. "It's not natural." "Let's head toward the lodge," Jake suggested. "Maybe they'll have answers, or at least a safe place to wait this out." As they trudged through the snow, the fog seemed to thicken around them. Their visibility dropped to mere feet, and the acrid stench grew stronger. They came across a skier lying motionless in the snow. Ethan knelt beside him, but when he rolled the man over, he recoiled in horror. The skier's face was covered in blackened sores, his lips cracked and bleeding. "Is he?" Lily began, but Ethan shook his head. "He's dead." Chapter 4: The Lodge is Empty. When they finally reached the lodge, they found it eerily quiet. The lights were out, and the large common area was deserted. Tables and chairs lay overturned, and half-eaten meals sat abandoned on plates. "Where is everyone?" Emma whispered, her voice echoing in the silence. Jake noticed a television on the wall. He pressed the power button, but it remained dark. He turned to the others. "Whatever's happening, it's affecting the whole resort." Ethan found a trail of bloody footprints leading down a hallway. "We should follow this," he said, his voice heavy with dread. "You've got to be kidding me," Lily said. "We need to find a phone or a way out, not follow blood trails." Emma stepped forward. "If there's even a chance someone's alive, we need to check." Reluctantly, they followed the footprints deeper into the lodge. Chapter 5: A Warning in the Dark. The trail ended at the door to the resort's maintenance room. Inside, they found a single survivor, a maintenance worker named Carl. He was huddled in the corner, clutching a gas mask to his face. "You shouldn't be here," Carl rasped. "What's happening?" Emma demanded. "What's this fog?" Carl's bloodshot eyes darted between them. "They told us not to go near the northern slopes," he said. "Said it was off limits, but some of the staff went anyway, looking for shortcuts." What did they find? Jake asked. Something buried, Carl whispered. Something that should have stayed buried. Before they could ask more, Carl convulsed violently and collapsed, his gas mask slipping from his face. Chapter 6. The Forbidden Zone. Carl's cryptic warning left the group with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear: whatever had caused the fog, it originated from the northern slopes. "We need to go there," Emma said. "That's insane," Lily protested. "Did you see what happened to him? If we don't figure out what's going on, we won't survive this," Emma replied. Reluctantly, the group agreed to investigate. They gathered supplies from the lodge, flashlights, scarves to cover their faces, and a map of the resort, and set off toward the Forbidden Zone. Chapter 7. Into the Mist. The journey to the northern slopes was grueling. The fog seemed to grow thicker with every step, and the cold bit through their layers of clothing. Ethan stumbled over something buried in the snow. When he brushed it aside, he revealed a metal sign that read, "Warning, restricted area. Do not enter." "Looks like we're in the right place," Jake said grimly. The group pressed on, their fear mounting with every passing moment. Chapter 8. The Crater. At the heart of the Forbidden Zone, they found a massive crater. The edges were jagged, as if the earth had been violently torn apart. In the center of the crater stood a strange metallic structure, half buried in the snow. It pulsed faintly, emitting an unnatural light. "What is that?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't look human," Ethan said. Emma stepped closer, her flashlight illuminating symbols etched into the metal. They were unlike anything she had ever seen, alien and unsettling. Chapter 9. The Fog's Origin. As they examined the structure, the ground began to tremble. A low, mechanical hum filled the air, and the fog grew darker, swirling around them like a living thing. "We need to get out of here," Lily shouted. But before they could flee, the structure emitted a blinding flash of light. Chapter 10. Trapped in the Mist. The flash of light left the group disoriented, their ears ringing and vision blurred. Emma was the first to recover, pulling herself to her feet and scanning the area. The fog was no longer just a dense vapor. It seemed alive, twisting and pulsing like a living organism. "Jake! Ethan! Lily!" she shouted, her voice echoing eerily. "Over here!" Jake's voice came from somewhere nearby, muffled by the thick fog. Emma stumbled toward the sound, nearly tripping over Ethan, who was coughing violently and clutching his chest. "We have to move," Jake said as he appeared out of the mist, dragging Lily, who looked pale and unsteady. Emma glanced back toward the crater. The metallic structure now glowed with an unnatural intensity, casting eerie shadows across the snow. Strange shapes moved within the fog, their outlines humanoid but distorted, as though the mist itself was taking form. "What's happening to it?" Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but we can't stay here," Emma said. "We need to get back to the lodge." Chapter 11. The Pursuit. As the group fled the crater, the fog seemed to follow them, its tendrils reaching out like grasping hands. The air grew colder, and the acrid stench intensified, making it harder to breathe. Ethan stumbled, falling to his knees. I can't," he wheezed, his face pale and streaked with sweat. "You have to," Emma said, pulling him to his feet. Suddenly, a low, guttural sound echoed through the fog. It wasn't human, and it was getting closer. "What was that?" Jake asked, his voice filled with dread. Lily pointed into the mist, her eyes wide. "There!" Emerging from the fog was a figure, tall, gaunt, and barely human. Its skin was gray and mottled, its eyes sunken and glowing faintly. It moved jerkily as though it were a puppet on strings. "It's coming toward us!" Ethan cried. "Run!" Emma shouted. The group sprinted through the snow, their panic giving them a burst of speed. The creature gave chase, its movements unnaturally fast despite its shambling gait. Chapter 12. The Lodge Revisited. They burst into the lodge, slamming the door behind them and barricading it with a nearby table. For a moment there was silence, except for their ragged breathing. "Is it still out there?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Jake peered through a crack in the door. The creature stood in the snow, just beyond the lodge, its head tilted as though listening. Then, slowly, it retreated into the fog. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan demanded. "It's the structure," Emma said. "Whatever it is, it's making the fog and those things." Jake sank into a chair, his face pale. "We need to tell someone. Call for help." "There's no signal," Emma reminded him. "We're completely cut off." Lily hugged herself, tears streaming down her face. If we stay here, we're gonna die. Chapter 13, The Journal. Desperate for answers, Emma began searching the lodge for anything that could explain the nightmare they were trapped in. In the manager's office, she found an old leather-bound journal tucked inside a drawer. The entries were written by a previous resort employee and detailed strange occurrences near the northern slopes. One entry stood out, December 8th. We found something buried beneath the snow while expanding the ski trails. It looks ancient, not of this world. Since then, the fog has started appearing. People are getting sick. We've been told to keep quiet, but I'm scared. Whatever we uncovered wasn't meant to be found. Another entry, dated days later, read, "The fog is alive. It's spreading faster now, and the things inside it, they're hunting us." Emma's hands shook as she closed the journal. Chapter 14, A Plan Forms. Emma returned to the others and showed them the journal. "This has been going on for years," she said. "The resort covered it up. That structure in the crater, it's the source of everything." Jake frowned. "So what do we do? Destroy it?" "How?" Lily asked. "We don't even know what it is." Ethan, still pale but determined, spoke up. "Maybe we don't need to destroy it. Maybe we just need to shut it down. Turn it off somehow." Emma nodded. "The journal said the fog started when they uncovered it. If we can find a way to stop it, maybe the fog will disappear too." Chapter 15, Back to the Crater. The group reluctantly agreed to return to the crater. They armed themselves with whatever they could find in the lodge: kitchen knives, heavy flashlights, and scarves to shield their faces from the fog. "This is suicide," Lily muttered, as they stepped back into the mist. "We don't have a choice," Emma said. The journey was slower this time. The fog was thicker, and the shadows within it seemed more numerous. Every sound made them jump, and the oppressive cold seeped into their bones. Chapter 16, The Truth Revealed. When they reached the crater, they found the structure glowing brighter than before. Strange symbols pulsed across its surface, and the hum it emitted was now deafening. As they approached, they discovered a hatch on the side of the structure. Inside was a control panel covered in unfamiliar symbols. "This is it," Ethan said, his voice barely audible. Emma studied the symbols, her mind racing. "If we can figure out how to deactivate it." Before she could finish, the fog thickened around them, and the creatures began to emerge. Chapter 17, The Final Stand. The group fought desperately to keep the creatures at bay while Emma worked on the control panel. Flashlights and knives proved almost useless against the fog-born entities, but they held their ground. "Hurry, Emma!" Jake shouted as he swung a chair leg at one of the creatures. "I'm trying!" Emma yelled, her hands trembling as she pressed random buttons on the panel. Finally, one of the symbols began to glow red, and the hum of the structure grew erratic. Chapter 18, The Collapse. The structure emitted a piercing shriek, and the ground began to shake violently. The fog swirled wildly, and the creatures let out inhuman wails as they dissolved into the mist. "It's working!" Ethan cried. The group scrambled out of the crater as the structure collapsed inward, its light fading. The fog began to lift, revealing the snow-covered slopes beneath. Chapter 19, The Aftermath. By dawn, the fog was gone. The group returned to the lodge, battered but alive. Emergency crews arrived later that day, responding to reports of missing guests and power outages. Emma handed the journal to a rescue worker, urging them to investigate. "People need to know what happened here," she said. Chapter 20, A New Beginning. Weeks later, the resort remained closed, its future uncertain. The group tried to move on, but the memories of the fog and the creatures lingered. As they parted ways, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't seen the last of whatever lay buried in the northern slopes.